Hello there everyone, Inky Fingers here, and this is Inky Fingers Architectural Art. Now sometimes you come across a building that's just so unusual that you've just got to paint it. And this is such a building. This is Pevril of the Peak. It's a Grade 2 listed public house in Greater Bridgewater Street in Manchester. Now it was built in 1820 and famously clad a striking mustard yellow and green ceramic tiles. They were put on around 1900. Now the interior is recognised by the Campaign for Ale people as of being outstanding national historic importance. Now technically it's a very simple building to paint and draw. Now it's a 2-point perspective, meaning that we've got 2 lines of convergence and very simple windows and doors. So technically it's not a difficult one to draw. But what will be difficult is these absolutely fantastic colours. But it's a strange sort of yellow and this light lime green colour. Now I'm quite sure you don't have a watercolour that has this colour, so we're going to have to try and recreate this colour. And we're going to have to try and recreate it well, because this is one of the main things that's so recognisable about this building. It's the colour combination. And talking about colours, we've got this absolutely gorgeous sort of green, vivid green door. So that's the building we're going to do today. Now, I've already drawn it out. As I've said, very simple to do. And the paper I'm going to be painting on is just smaller than A4 sheet of Arch rough. And for the inking stage, which I'm going to do now, I'm going to be using a bottle of Winsor & Newton India ink and just a small, quite rigid steel tipped nib. Now, as this is rough paper and it's a 100% rag paper, the drawing of the ink should be quite nice. Hopefully it'll skip across the paper and it'll give a sort of a nice organic look. So the pen goes on very nicely, very scratchily, and I'll just do the whole thing and then I'll be back. So the inking stage is now done, but I'm going to start with the sky. Now the sky in the picture looks like more like cerulean blue or manganese blue, a very light coloured blue with some white clouds. I'm not going to use that colour on its own anyway. I'm going to use a mixture of ultramarine blue and mixed with a little bit of manganese, which is like cerulean blue, and a little bit of manganese on its own. So we're going to mix these 2 colours up in the sky, just so it's not a one flat boring looking colour in the sky. And I'm going to do this on dry paper with a Winsor & Newton Klinsky Sable No. 6 rigger. So starting with the blue, I'm just going to drag this over. Just like so. Then I'm going to go into the manganese. You can see it's a lot different. It's a lot cleaner looking than ultramarine. Just so we've got a difference, a little bit of a difference in colour. No masking fluid around the chimney, so you've got to watch it a little bit. Drag it across. Maybe just go back into the blue, the ultramarine type blue, in the water, and I'm just going to soften some of these edges up a little bit. Just to make some more fluffy soft cloud colour. And I think I'll just put a touch of raw sienna just here and there in these clouds, just so we can colour the bottoms up a little bit to make it look like it's got some nice colour. And that is it. That's the sky done. Now while I'm waiting for this sky to dry, I can do the road here. The road is two types of different grey. One's a more bluey grey and the pavement is a more of a sort of a lighter grey. So the darker bluey grey, this is just cobalt blue and light red and lots of water. Gives a classic grey. I'll just sweep this over. And for the pavement here, I'm going to use the same colour, but I'm just going to put perhaps a touch of maybe raw sienna in. The same colour I used for the sky. That's going to warm it up a little bit. And just sweep that across. Not really too concerned. So now the extremities are in. Now we can concentrate on the building itself. So I'm going to start off with these chimney pots. Chimney pots, classic old brick colour of burnt siennas, light reds, maybe some neutral tint or French ultramarine to darken the bricks up. The usual colours. But what I am going to do first is I've mixed up some yellow ochre and a touch of raw sienna just to make this sort of light colour up. And I'm just going to paint this over both chimney stacks, or all of the chimney stacks. And this is going to be an underwash for the mortar. And when it's dry, I'll actually paint in some individual bricks, and any gaps I leave, it's going to leave this underwash, and that's going to be the lighter coloured mortar. Now continuing down the picture, we come to this roof. Now the roof is a bit like the road here. It's sort of a dark grey. So I'm just going to use the same colour I used for this road, cobalt blue and some light red. And I'm just going to paint on just a nice flat wash. So you know it looks quite dark now, but it will dry lighter. Be a bit careful of this chimney stack because it is still wet. But if it does go in, it doesn't really matter. It'll just join that into that. It is going up a little bit as we speak. Now we're not waiting for anything to dry, because the next thing I'm doing is these lovely decorative big window frames, and this is, I would say, definitely some form of quinacridone gold. Slightly dark quinacridone gold, but I'm just going to do this, I think, as pure quinacridone gold. Now quinacridone gold is a beautiful colour. It's very vibrant, as we can see. It's very, very transparent. And then continuing on with this quinacridone gold theme, I'm going to paint in this sort of orangey colour. I'm going to use quinacridone gold, and we'll try a little bit of reds and see what we come up with. Now the colour I've come up with is I've simply mixed in some cadmium red medium. It's a bog standard colour, nothing special, but it has darkened it down, enriched it up, but darkened it down a little bit to this sort of more deeper orange colour. As if you look at the photograph, to this colour, it's actually turned out very well. So I'll just continue to paint in all of this part of the building in this colour. Now we've got this in, it's very similar, very, very similar to the colour we've got in the photograph. I'm going to go still way down to the bottom of the building to this part here. Now by this looks like a very dark dingy green. So what I've done here is I've mixed up some viridian green, indigo and neutral tint, and that has given us this sort of very sort of cool very bluey green. Right, so we're all dry. Now, the difficult bit. We need to try and figure out what these colours are. Now we'll start with the yellow tiles. Now what can we see? Yes, they're yellow. Are they a plain yellow? No, they're not. Are there different coloured tiles in there, or are some tiles just dirty? Grime, wear and tear. But we've got to try and figure out something. So let's take this step by step. How would you find a colour like this? Well, what kind of yellow is it? Is it a cool yellow or is it a warm yellow? It's definitely a warm yellow. What yellow have I got in my palette? This is the palette I'm using, and I've only got a couple of yellows in this. This is a cool yellow and a warm yellow. So I haven't really got much choice. So I'm going to use the warm yellow here. Now this is Hansa Yellow Deep. It's a Daniel Smith colour, and it is very, very warm. So I take some Hansa Yellow Deep and put it in this receptacle. So what do we have? Yes, we have a nice bright yellow, but when we look at or compare this to that, we can see that it's a warm yellow, but it's far too bright. It needs to be dirtied down a little bit, perhaps made a little bit more opaque. So what do we do to make it opaque? We could add a bit of white, but that's going to be too much. So I do have some Naples yellow. Naples yellow is a sort of light colour, and it is indeed opaque. So that's going to make a difference, hopefully. It's sort of darkened it up slightly, but it's still too bright. So what do we do to knock this down? Now we could use some of its yellows, complementary colour, a touch of purple, just a speck of purple, but I'm not going to. What I think I'll do is I'm going to use some neutral tint, because that darkens down or subdues colours a tiny bit. You can see what that does. Now if we put some of that there, what do we have? Now that, half closing my eyes up, looking at the tone, but that is not too bad at all. It's quite a close match. You're never going to get the exact colour unless you're extraordinarily lucky, but that is a colour that I'm very happy with. Okay, this part here is a little bit brighter, so we could make that a tad brighter, but intermingle with some of this dark colour in. So that was Hansa Yellow Deep, Naples Yellow, and a touch of neutral tint gives us pretty much that colour. So now we just have to apply it. So what I've ended up doing is mixing up two colours. This is the colour I've shown you to do the dirty parts, and this is exactly the same colour with not as much neutral tint in. So it's sea yellow, it's much brighter, but it's still not a clean yellow. It's ever so slightly dirty. So that will suffice for these lighter parts. So now it's just a matter of carefully painting in. Try not to go over these windowsills because they are that beautiful, it's like an emerald green. It's very sort of more of a light yellow here. We're still into the light yellow here. But we do tend to sort of go down a little bit more into dark around the bottom here. And I think I will just touch in a little bit of this darker yellow around here. Now we're getting to more of, or into this more subdued yellow here on this part of the building. I drop a little bit of that darker colour in the bottom here, and maybe a touch along there. We can, of course, when this is all dry, put a little bit of this darker in on when it's on dry paper, and what that will do is just give it a bit more staining, just to make the illusion a little bit more realistic to what the actual building is like. And I'm happy with that. Now we've got to while this is drying, we can try and figure out what on earth to do for this minty green colour, as you don't get this colour in a tube. Again, we've got to sort of just think about things of what sort of green it is. Is it cool? Is it warm? Or the brightness of it, just like we did with this yellow. But what I actually did just 2 nights ago, I was experimenting with some colours, and this is using quinacridone gold with all the different blues I have. So all I really need to do here is to try and match up this green with what I've got on this chart, if I can. So looking at this, there's one colour stands out straight away to me, and that is this colour here. It's a strange sort of green, but if you look at that green and look at that, yes, it's not the same, but if we lighten this green up, even perhaps with a touch of white ink, perhaps a touch of Naples yellow, we should be able to lighten that up enough to make it we'll see if it looks like this. But how do we get this green here? Well, simply because I've made the chart, this is just quinacridone gold and manganese, which is like cerulean blue. So there's a plan. So we'll mix up some quinacridone gold first, which is nice because it is the colour I used on these window frames here, so it keeps in with the colour harmony. So there's some quinacridone gold. We put in some manganese, which is giving us this colour. Now that colour, as we can see, is nothing like that. I'll maybe put a touch more quinacridone gold and a little bit more water. Lightens it up. It's still not there, so I'm going to try a little bit of the Naples yellow, which we can see is not the colour. Put more water in to make it more dilute. No, it doesn't work. This is far more acidic, so I'm going to try some white ink. Just drop some white ink in there. It will make it much lighter and more opaque. So what do we have now? It's still too yellow. So let's put a little bit more of the viridian in. Well, a bit of viridian, because that is such a weird sort of green. And now we can see we are starting to get, through trial and error and a little bit of colour theory knowledge, this colour. We get into the colour. Now it needs to be a little bit brighter or whiter, so I'm going to put a little bit more white in. And we're getting there. More white. Really, it wants more white in. But that is not too bad. So the only thing we can do is to actually try it on the picture and see what happens. So let's just try some of this incredibly sort of light green. Well, as I said before, with the with other colours, you're not going to get it exact unless you're very lucky. As long as the character and the main sort of what it looks like is recognisable. It still could be a little bit lighter, actually. I think that might be a little bit more. I was just thinking it could have been a little bit more, a touch more warmer. As I put all that white in. And to make it warmer, all I've added was this colour, which is the dirty colour for the yellow. So we're not mixing up any new colours. It's all the colours we've actually got in the picture itself. And that's the green done. Now as this is now drying, we've got the other parts of the building to do, i.e. what we haven't painted in yet, and that's the green doors and the windows. Now it is quite a vivid green. I would say is a more like an emerald type of green, maybe it's mixed with something else. I don't have emerald green, but what I do have, the next best thing, is Viridian. I would say Viridian mixed with a little bit of warm yellow. That would brighten it up and just modify that harsh, quite horrible Viridian colour on its own. And then perhaps just to knock it down ever so slightly, a touch of blue. So what I've done, I've mixed up Viridian. I put some Hansa Yellow Deep, which I've used for this part, the yellow part of the building. And then I put just a touch of Cobalt Blue. And we'll see what that's like. I think it should be okay, but we will find out. So I can't go up here because this is still wet, but I can go down. And let's do this doorway. But the whole point of this public house is, as I said when I read out a little bit of details about it, it's the colour. It's well known for the colour. This window frame is the same colour, but the outer edge of it is much more sunshine coloured. It's a lot lighter green. Aye, not the green I'm using now, so I'll have to mix up another green for that. Okay, so we have all this lush green in. But now we've got to put the outer frames and some of the bits and bobs of this picture. And as I said, this is the green we've got for the door. Around these outer frames, it's got a lot more yellow in. So what I've done is I had the same colour as the doors, and I've just put a lot more Hansa Yellow Deep into that colour. So that's made it a much more sort of a more of a yellowy green. And all we need to do is just paint this in as a flat wash. So I've done all that, and I've added a few little extra bits like this this sign, a little bit of colour on this sign, just little bits and bobs. But now I'm going to put the brickwork in the chimney pots. Now the brickwork, as I've said, I've already got the mortar colour on. I just have to put the brick colour. All we do here, very, very simple, a thin but long brush. It's not a rigger, it's just a cheap nylon brush. Paint in some bricks. But just making sure you leave a little bit of gap between the bricks to show the underwash, which in this case, as I've said, is the mortar. With that, just to make it look like as bricks, and I shall do exactly the same with this one. So I've done a little bit to it while you've been away. I've put another wash onto the road. I put another wash, these are the same colours, another wash onto the roof just to darken it up. The brickwork is complete, and what I need to do now is, I think, a little bit of, as I said earlier on, some texturing or staining on this wall here, just so it looks like it's got some stains. And what I'm going to use is the same colour as this with a little bit of the neutral tint in, and I'm just going to, with a small brush, drop it on This is on dry paper. And then just drop some water on, as I usually do, and pull it around. Just to make it look like it does have a little bit of dirt, a little bit of grime. Just to try and match what's in the photograph. Like we got quite a lot down this end here. Brush in the clean water, drop some of the paint or the water on, just drag it around. And just do this where you think you need. Now we've got to put the windows in. So I've mixed up some neutral tint and indigo just to make a nice dark colour, and just going to simply paint in some dark, but then drop in a little bit of water so it'll encourage a water mark. And then this top one, well, it is a little bit lighter due to the reflection of the window, but it might not look as correct, so I think I'll just drop a little bit of dark in there. They're going to be windows, and then I'll do exactly the same. So what I've done with this, I did decide to put a few little background buildings in, but just as silhouettes. So all I'm going to really try now is to put a few little windows in, very sort of dry brushy, very aka Joseph's Buckvick style. Obviously not as good. It's just something to try and keep the thing in the background, and I need to put some shadows in before I put the little bits of detailing in. And the colour I'm going to try for the shadows is ultramarine blue and cadmium red. Right, so while you've been away, I've just been enhancing the thing, the picture, by going over the lines again here and there with the original ink and dipping pen, adding fine details, for example around the window frames here, putting some the curtain line folds in, just a few little simple lines just to give it a little bit of juiciness here and there. Now this is simply diluted ink, just to give an extra bit of oomph to these shadows. And finally, for this picture, we have to put the text in. I'm just going to use white ink and the same dipping pen I used for the lining. And that's it. That's the picture done. Just putting some extra bits of texture here and there. Again, going over with the pen where I think I needed it. Just a few more extra juicy lines just to give it a little bit of something, to make it look like the age it actually is. And compared to the picture or the photograph, it isn't actually too bad. The colours aren't exact, but they're close enough for me. Now, just examples of the details, and in a little bit closer fashion, as you can see, we've put some brickwork, extra brickwork, just using a small flat brush. It's just this colour with just a little bit of dirt in it, just to darken it up slightly. And I've done the same with the green, just to show that there are some bricks in, and a few little highlights or outlines with the pen just on a few of them. But in all, I'm quite happy with this. It's turned out quite well, and the background buildings, which I did put in at the end of the day, do add something to it. I think it would have looked a little bit empty without them. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this little demonstration of this really unique and colourful building. And until I see you again, I'll say goodbye. So, goodbye.